Alrighty, welcome. We are going to go ahead and get this session started. The session will be recorded and placed in the handouts later on by staff. So welcome to Food Security Hunger-Free Higher Ed Toolkit. Today's presenter is Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown is an associate professor at Auburn University. She received her doctoral degree in Nutritional Sciences from the Iowa State University. Her interests include using community based participatory research to examine the nutritional determinants, consequences, and prevention of diet-related health disparities in ethnic minority and low-income populations. She's also interested in developing interventions and tools to assess and prevent unwanted and unhealthy weight gain in undeserved populations. Ultimately, she works to increase the quality of life of ethnic minority, low-income, and undeserved populations by developing and implementing sustainable programs that change negative nutrition behaviors. So without further ado, I invite Dr. Brown to the stage to start her presentation.
All right, thank you for your help, Emily. Thank you for also the great introduction.
No problem. Are you able to see the share screen?
Yes, I am. Like none of that was there. None of that. None of that
No
was there. I
worries.
was like, this is wrong. Okay,
I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I'm ready to share my screen. Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you all for your patience, that those of you who have joined this session, which is Food Security, the Hunger-Free Higher Ed Approach. Again, I'm Onikia Brown. I am Associate Professor at the Department of Nutritional Sciences at Auburn University. And I am glad that you are here today to learn about our 6-step approach to decreasing college student food insecurity on your campus or on a campus that's near and dear to you. Today, the purpose is to introduce you to this approach that'll help you to increase strategies on your campus that will decrease college student food insecurity. So let's get started. What do you think about when you think about the word food security? If you could just drop those words into the chat for me. I'll give you about 5 seconds to think about that. Okay, so of course, some people think of hunger. Actually, hunger has been defined by the USDA as actually a pain, discomfort, weakness, or illness that's caused by a long-term lack of food. So the key word there is pain. So hunger is physiological. Food insecurity, on the other hand, is not having enough food, whether it's nutritious food, whether it's the amount of food at all times for a healthy and active life, because the money is not available. So hunger is physiological, but food insecurity is more about the economics. A person who is food insecure can be a person who don't receive the quality of food, meaning it's not nutrient dense. They aren't getting enough of their food. The quantity is not enough, or it's not received in socially acceptable ways, like they are dumpster diving, or they're waiting for people to be done at a restaurant to get food that way. Also, a person who is food insecure may not be meeting their psychological needs or their cultural needs. So those are some of the 5 things that we think about when we're trying to determine food insecurity. And so your next question might be, well, who's food insecure? Who are the food insecure individuals? Actually, people who are food insecure look like me. They look like you. They look like your neighbor, your teammate, your colleague. It goes beyond people who are in underdeveloped countries. People experience episodes of being food insecure. So an episode of food insecurity looks like a person who is skipping lunch because it's the end of the month and they've run out of money to spend on food that they have for lunch. Or food insecurity looks like a family who the parents eat less for dinner to make sure that the children have food for that night. Those are all instances of food insecurity. Food insecurity may be chronic. That means that it is persistent over the days, it is persistent over the months, or it can be episodes, as I just explained to you. So what does this mean for the U.S.? What does this mean as far as who's food insecure? Well, we do know that about 1 in 20 households experience food insecurity in America. That's about 10.5% of the U.S. households. Now, we know that about 3 times as many college students have reported being food insecure at some time during their tenure. So think about your college life. Think about the food that you ate. Think about being a starving college student, if you will, as though that is a rite of passage. The pizza, the macaroni and cheese, the ramen noodles. Think about those meals that you had to have because you did not have the money. And those are instances where students are food insecure. We know that food insecure students have lower GPAs, have a lower mental health status, they have lower energy, and they are also socialized less. We also know that people who are, specifically U.S. college students who are food insecure, have increased levels of stress, increased levels of impulsiveness, as well as they miss class more. So you say, well, yes, the academic performance is low, and yes, they're missing classes, and what can we do about it? One of the things that college students, they don't have a safety net. So these students are sometimes first-generation students, students from ethnic or racial minority backgrounds, first generation, Pell Grant recipients. These students are representatives from the LGBTQ population. And these students are also from families with low incomes, and they are not in college, they are not eligible for free and reduced lunch. So there's no safety net for our college students. And this is where we come in. This is where this 6-step approach comes in so that we can give our college students some support. The Hunger Solutions Institute at Auburn University, along with my department, the Department of Nutritional Sciences, joined forces. We had this bright idea, like, hey, we need to do something about this food insecurity on campuses, and let's start in Alabama. So we developed a 6-step approach, and today we'll dive into that 6-step approach. So at any time, please feel free to ask questions as we make our way through this 6-step approach. And as we get to the end, I invite you to decide if you'd like to implement this 6-step approach and become a partner at your campus or a campus that's near and dear to you. The 6th includes, first, we start here with engage. And in that, this is a community-based participatory research methods. It engages the community. Engaging our community will make this approach sustainable. It will make this approach culturally relevant, and also make this approach acceptable to the people that we're serving. So in that engage step, what we do is we form coalitions, and we've formed a coalition in Alabama, and we've formed actually 29 campus coalitions to help decrease basic needs insecurity. Our next step, we move to assess. And in this phase, we assess what's going on campuses, whether it be the prevalence, or it could also mean the resources that are available, as well as looking at lived experiences. And we've collected some cool data on lived experiences and coalition building. The third step is plan. I'm sure many of you have heard the saying, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. Or if you don't have a plan for yourself, somebody else does. So we plan here, and we provide support. The Hunger Free Higher Ed Consortium provides support through planning, through assess, through engaging, so that the coalitions can implement strategies that are relevant, that are timely, that are acceptable, and that are low-hanging, and also that are low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit just means things that they can do very quickly that makes a broad impact. So we take small steps to make large impacts when we implement. Our fifth step to this approach is evaluate. In the evaluation, we look at process, we look at outcome, and we look at impact evaluations. And although it appears 5 in the step, it appears in every single step. So we do evaluate and engage, assess, plan, and implement. The last step to the approach, celebrate. And to celebrate, this is a lot of fun. It is also a lot of work. So let's dive into what we've already accomplished. The first step being the engage step. In our engage step, we've developed a statewide coalition called the Alabama Campus Coalition for Basic Needs, which we affectionately term ACPN. This coalition was developed so that we could join forces with people in other colleges and other organizations so that we can ensure that the college students in Alabama, that their basic needs are being met so that we can empower them to succeed and go on to transition from college students to young adults. What we learned about developing our coalition, when we developed a coalition, we have 29 2- and 4-year campuses who are now part of the coalition and who have developed coalitions on their own campuses. The campus coalitions are led by champions, and these champions have participated in qualitative research methods that help us to determine what are some of the best practices that's going on in your campus. This network, that ACPN coalition, has helped many campuses in Alabama to get over barriers and bridges that seem to be in implementing strategies. And so it's a place to help. With these champions on these campuses act as liaisons between the statewide coalition, ACPN, and the campus coalition. And so what we've learned is that having the administrative support, having upper level administrative support will help your coalition be very successful. We learned that making sure that there's a diverse representation of the coalition of people on your coalition, including the police force, including faculty, including the Student Government Association, including Greek organizations, as well as off-campus organizations into the campus coalition so that everyone who's interested in decreasing college student food insecurity is available to bring all of their resources together. The most important thing that we've learned about the best practices is that using all of the resources from all of the individuals that are on the coalition will help the coalition to use the resources in a manner that exponentially decreases college student food insecurity on the campuses. So moving from engage to assess. Step 2 is assess, and we assess in ways. First, in prevalence survey. And these prevalence surveys were distributed on all of our campuses, and we learned a lot about what the prevalence is on different campuses, how it looks similar to what the national average is and how it's different. We also developed a campus food aid self-assessment tool, which we call CFAST, and that helps to look at the resources available on the campus, and it's a tool that's validated. We also developed 2 qualitative studies, which we looked at the lived experiences of our students. We did some studies about how the campus champions were leading the coalitions and how the best things for those campus champions and how to get them over humps. So let's talk about what we found out about the prevalence surveys. As a result of those participating colleges and universities in Alabama, we found that the range is 30 to 63% of our students in Alabama experience some form of food insecurity. This food can be persistent. And we also learned through this that a lot of students are not aware of the resources that are available on their campus. Also regarding the assess phase, when we did the results for the CFAS, which it looks at 9 different dimensions, it gives 4 levels. And we saw that most of the schools did really good with advocacy and trying to get people to be aware and advocating for getting food and having food. And so doing food drives. But where they really need a lot of help on is education and training, as well as research and scholarship. And this is results for CFAS. Remember that this is being validated in 29 campuses in Alabama. Regarding our student anecdotes, what we was that in these lived experiences, we found that students are skipping lunch or making smaller meals and skipping dinner. We found that students are going out to eat and immediately halving their restaurant meals so that they can have. We also found that students reported that they cannot afford healthy options, whether it's in the convenience store, the C-store, the cafeteria, and that they were very depressed. And these things support some of the other research that has already been done. We also found that students felt like they couldn't join any clubs. So that means that they're being under socialized in a time of their life where they should be really socialized. And they didn't want to join the clubs because the costs, the cost of the t-shirts, the cost of the fee to be in the club. And so many students don't. But we also found out that some students actually go to clubs when they have pizza. And because of all these things that are going on, not having enough food, not having enough, being depressed, we found that students reported that they're falling asleep during class because just not getting enough to eat. And they're just really tired and that they're really, really. So some of the conclusions from our champions, remember we did speak with our champions, and some of the takeaways, again, we cannot stress how important it is to get the support of the upper administration, and that we have to make sure that everyone on the coalition, on the campus coalition, is respected and that their efforts are being shown and seen. We also have to make sure that we are recruiting from various sectors on our campuses and off our campuses, with people who work closely with our students, with people with our students, and as well as emergency professionals. Some of our campuses have police on them. Some of our campus coalitions have even the dean of students. So getting those partnerships, starting those partnerships early and getting those onto your coalitions will make a big difference in the success of your coalition. The next part is plan. For those of you who keep a planner, for those of you who love to organize closets and drawers, this is where you will thrive. Planning what you will do. This is based on the assessment. So as the Hunger Free Higher Ed Consortium, we will give you a report based on your assessment of prevalence, based on your CFAS, and let you know these are the things that are missing. This is what the students need. This is the amount of students who are food insecure on your campus. And these are some areas where your campus can use some assistance, but these are also some areas where your campus are thriving. And based on this report, we sit down and help plan out some strategies, whether that be implementing a new program, whether that be implementing a new food pantry, starting a new class or anything of that nature. And this plan also may help. If you need more people on the coalition, what other type of people you need on the coalition? It might be something about transportation. So you might need to get your city transportation on board on the coalition. It might just be about more deliverable meals. It might be about swipes. And so you need to get the director of food services. So planning is an important helps you to fill some of those gaps on your coalition that you wouldn't normally get a chance to see. Once we have done planning, we move into the implement phase. We've gotten some funds to do some planning, and some of the implementation, these are some of the things that individuals are already doing on campuses, and these are some of the things, some of the strategies that people have implemented on their campuses. So increasing education, whether it's nutrition education in the cafeteria or brochures, whether it's snaps, whether it is in also providing swipes, and then making sure that the food pantries are up to date, doing food drives, changing the food pantries. And our coalitions are doing some amazing things that I will share later on what our food pantries are doing. And some of our schools implemented as a result of being a member of ACPAN, actually developed a food pantry on their campus. Most food pantries start in the drawer of a faculty member or a staff member who knows that there are students who come in and they're hungry. Some food pantries start in the closet, and then as the need grows and as the voices grow, pantry grows. There have also been centralized student services, so putting everything in a central location to decrease the stigma and increase the awareness. Because of COVID, a lot of emergency aid has been implemented on campuses in Alabama that are participating in ACPAN, and they reported emergency aid for food, emergency aid for housing, emergency aid also for clothing. So it's not just about food, but it's about basic needs, because if a person is not getting the food that they need, then 9 times out of 10, they are not in the housing situation that they need to be, or they don't have clothing as well as personal items. Some of the food pantries are now offering hygiene items. And last but not least, research and data analysis. And that's one of the best things about ACPAN, is it gives us a platform to bring all of these data in from 29 2- and 4-year colleges and universities in Alabama, and bring this data together so that we can impact policies, impact legislation, take it to our governor and say, this is what's going on with our college students in Alabama. How can we make their transition from a college student to young adulthood better? What do we need to do? After we get through with implementation, we want to look at the pre and the post. Right? We want to out what's going on. This is our time for looking at checks and balances. And so we evaluate throughout. We evaluate in the engage phase, looking at who still needs to be on the coalition, who's missing. We evaluate in the assess phase. We look at prevalence. We look at resources available, what's not available. We evaluate during the implement phase, look as process. What's working in your food pantry? What's working with your library pantry? What's not working? So evaluation is a time to look at checks and balances. What's working, what's not working? How can we make it better? What challenges, what celebrations, what barriers do forward to? Evaluation goes all the way through this 6-step process. This 6-step process has been developed again and is being validated, has been developed by the Hunger Solution Institute, Power specifically, and myself, and it is being validated in 29 colleges and universities in the state of Alabama. Last but not least, we celebrate. And the best thing about celebrating is that it means we get to party. We get to party because we know that increasing strategies to decrease college student food insecurity will positively impact student outcomes. We also get to celebrate through publications, whether that is presentations, whether that is papers, poster presentations, community presentations. Your college or university, your 2 or 4 year campus gets to publicize the things that they're doing, that they've decreased their college student food insecurity, that they've increased their college student outcomes on their brochures, on their websites, on their social media platforms. So not just student outcomes, but this is a way to get more students to come to your school. We also celebrate partnerships because being in a coalition is not just about the campuses, but it's also about the other organizations that are involved in the coalition. Those organizations that are involved in our organization is SNAP of Alabama. We have the Southeast Dairy Council, or our other partnerships. We have the police, we have medical services. We also celebrate with funding. Now, funding is important because it helps us to do the things that we don't really necessarily sometimes have the money to do. So once we apply for grants and get that funding, we can celebrate, and then we start that cycle all over again. Engaging with individuals on our coalition that will make an impact. And remember, sometimes we have to change. So our coalition consists of 29 2 and 4 year colleges and universities, and without them, we wouldn't be able to be making big footprint in college student food insecurity in the state of Alabama. We also have organizations that are partners, but also within our network of ACPN, and those include where we got our funding from, ECMC Foundation, as well as the Kigo Foundation and the United States Department of Agriculture. We've also celebrated by a conference that we hold every year that helps us to come together and network and form new relationships and put in actually give our outcomes and impacts of what's going on in our different campuses. Some of our other organizations include Feeding Alabama, and I mentioned the Dairy Alliance, and that's because these organizations are also interested in decreasing food insecurity. And so they network them, they provide support to our strategy so that we can decrease college student food insecurity on our campuses. So thank you for your time. I hope that you are enlightened and would like to increase the coalitions in your state or even on your campus. And for more information on how to partner with Hunger Free Higher Ed, how to implement a coalition, how to start this process, the 6-step approach, please contact me at onbrown@auburn.edu. And I would love to speak more with you about how we can get you involved in decreasing college student food insecurity on your campus or a campus that's near and dear to you. Thank you. And at this time, I'll take questions.
Any questions? There's nothing in the Q&A or chat, but feel free if you want to ask them live as well to Dr. Brown. We would take those questions now.
How many of you actually have a food pantry on your campus? You just type yes.
Looks like 2 of the people have given, 3 people have given a reaction that they have one on their campus. It's awesome.
Great. And so within the coalition building and becoming a member of the Hunger Free Higher Ed Consortium will help you to make your food pantry better. Some of the that we've done on our campuses that are ACPN, within the ACPN network, is being able to have their food pantry open a day, able to allow students to come in and have access when school is out of session. And they do this because the police are part of the coalition, and the police have access to the building and it lets the students in. What we found in our coalition is that we're not sure if it's awareness right now or if it's stigma, the reason why a lot of students don't use the food pantries. And so we've actually developed a study to determine how we can decrease stigma and how we can increase awareness. So other things that have been developed on our campuses include some people have developed Tuskegee because of a grant that we received from ECMC Foundation. Tuskegee received some information, some funds that would allow them to actually implement a food pantry. Some other things, some coursework has been developed. Some coursework has been developed to help individuals to educate more of the students about food insecurity. And that's why I started where I did. Most people don't even realize that they are experiencing food insecurity because they think that being food insecure does not look like them. But a lot of people experience food insecurity episodes and aren't aware of it. Do you think we need some regulation or guidelines for food pantry management? Well, when we think about that with ACPN, one of the things is the food pantry on a lot of campuses deters participation. So when we're asking students a lot about their personal information, it decreases participation. The campuses that don't ask students about their personal identification have more participation. They can't keep things on the shelves. They are expanding their food pantries. There actually aren't any studies that show identification, any randomized control studies, any published studies that show that regulation or guidelines or food pantry management hinders food pantry participation. But just on our case study from ACPN, management sort of hinders. Good question. Thank you, Mohammed. Yes, we observed a lot of food insecurity due to COVID-19 within the college students. And that's because even though the campus is shut down, a lot of students weren't able to go home. We found that one of the things that the campus champions said was that they were really stretched very thinly because of COVID and the campus being shut down. They had to look at food emergencies for students that they never had to do, but students weren't allowed to go home or they couldn't go home for many reasons. And so they were sort of stuck. And a lot of students don't have off-campus jobs. And those who did have off-campus jobs were not allowed to work because we were shut down. So a lot of students were food insecure during COVID-19. And actually the pandemic is actually what shed light on food insecurity for college students, really brought it a little more to the forefront of what a big problem that it is, and that we've sort of as a society accepted that being a starving college student is a rite of passage. So we'd like to change that. We like to make asking for help more acceptable and making the food pantry more of a resource, right? So not like it's a place where you go and you should be shamed, but just like when you need help with writing or you need help with math, you go to the tutor at the resource center, and not like a food pantry that says glaring red signals, need food, need help, need food, need help. There's a question I didn't get to up here. Do you find that there's a specific question on the USDA screener? Validated responders or click yes or no? Well, the USDA food insecurity screener was developed for adults or free living adults, independent adults. And we know that the college campus and college life is different than free living or even different than adults with children. And so the USDA food insecurity screener, it doesn't touch at the lifestyle of a college student. A college student doesn't think of life in the terms of the last 12 months. They think of life in terms of semester. So we do need something, and we're working on that. Our group, the Hunger Free Higher Ed Consortium, along with HCRC, we're working on trying to develop something that will get more to how many students are food insecure. And students don't even really consider themselves food insecure, and they don't go to the pantry because they do have the mindset that there are people who are worse off than them. I just skipped lunch, I'll be fine. Or I only had half dinner, I'll be fine. I have seen our food pantry is full. That's a great question, Mohammed. In the event, we would love for the food pantry to look like a grocery store that gives many different options. However, those are the things that we get in the food pantry are things that people are donating. So food pantries really live off donations. So if we could give people to donate things that are healthier, then people who are food insecure will have healthier choices. There is actually, I'm not sure we need ground rules because everyone loves some potato chips now and again. Everyone loves some chocolate now and again. So without preventing someone from their own variety and moderation, we do need to have more nutrient-dense choices in our food pantries. And then there is a toolkit to help some food pantries provide a more healthful experience in the food pantry, but it's been validated in rural food pantries, and it hasn't been validated yet in college campus food pantries, which we hope to do also. Good question, thank you. Other questions or comments? So I'll ask a question. What other strategies are available on your campus to decrease food insecurity? That's excellent, Thomas. $1 meals during lunchtime for students, staff, and faculty at UK. That's excellent. I wish we all could do that. Swipe out hunger. That's awesome. There's a swipe donation program. A lot of schools are still trying to figure out the swipe donation programs. One of the biggest hurdles that we found on our coalition is students being able to obtain swipes or donations and it not being counted within their financial aid. So we're trying to, a lot of campuses are still trying to figure out how to get students the money that they need to eat without having to come up with more money for tuition, because some places do count that money. Rutgers used to have a delivery service. Rutgers used to have a delivery service during the peak of the pandemic. Not sure if they are still running the service. And we saw that in a lot of our campuses, that the delivery services were excellent and awesome. And then COVID stopped, and now the delivery services are no longer. But the delivery services help the students because students are like we are, pressed for time, but they still need to eat. And so students are running back into that. If they're pressed for time and they don't have the time to get to the pantry, some pantries are only open from 9 to 5. Some pantries are only open on Wednesdays or Fridays or Saturdays. And so that prevents them from accessing the food pantry. Free farmers market with produce from university farms. That's great. Auburn University does have a community farmers market, and we provide from the community farm things that people can take for free. So that's a great way also. And bringing some of those people from the farmers market onto the coalition, because they have a lot of contacts with other organizations. Thank you, Jeff. And then time restraints hurt though, especially when students are in class doing this. Yes. And that's important for people in the coalition, our administrators to know. But if I can't say enough about how our campus champions said, without that upper level administrative support, you won't get far. So you have to convince the upper administration that there is actually a problem on your campus, that food insecurity does exist among your college students in order for them to be all in. Some of our campus coalitions did say that without the voice of their administrator, they just kind of trudged along. But then COVID happened, and that really helped them to get the funds that they need to implement strategies. Other comments about the 6-step process? Is anyone interested in how to start a coalition or how to get involved with the Hunger Free Higher Ed Consortium? If so, I will leave my email here. We can talk more.
It looked like there was a comment from Courtney.
Okay.
Dr. Brown.
I see. Courtney, not a comment on the process, but a question according to data. Our food rate for students is over 10% higher than the national average. Yeah. 50% of our students report that they are actively trying to lose weight. How would you suggest balancing that threat of food insecurity and such pervasive diet culture? All right. So that's a lot. That's a big question. And that's a big question because, yes, our students report that they are actively trying to lose weight. So in those cases, those students aren't food insecure. They are actively trying to lose weight. And so they are cutting their caloric intake. It's important for us on our campuses to make sure that we are participating in positive body imaging in our media, on our campus, so that individuals don't think that they need to be a size 0 or a double 0, or because in such a culture where everyone believes that they need to be smaller than they are, we have to promote that people should be confident in their body and healthful in their bodies. But yes, food insecurity can cause obesity, and that's because people who are food insecure oftentimes go through times of binging because they are afraid that they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And they also choose foods that are high calorie, high fat, high sugar, because unfortunately, we believe that those foods are less expensive. And that's because we're taught and we're teaching that fresh fruit and vegetables are the best, whereas canned fruit and vegetables are just as good. And you can get those in low sodium, no syrup, and you can get them in water. So it decreases the amount of sugar that you're adding. So we have to change the message of eating canned and frozen is just as good as eating that fresh, because we know that fresh food does cost more. Did that answer your question? Great.
Well, I think we'll wrap up then. Thank you guys again so much for the conversation and the presentation. Again, Dr. Brown, Just a reminder here, you'll get a survey. Also, we're having a hydration break right now, so take a moment. I'm going to take this out of presentation mode. You are in a breakout session room, so make sure to click the black box on the right side of the screen when I exit out of here to get back to the main room, and the next session will start at 3:15. Thank you, guys.